Hey everyone, welcome to this episode. Wow, what a journey. What a journey. I am just getting over a cold. You can probably hear that in my voice, so I'm hoping it doesn't come across too much. But I am really excited to record this episode, and I didn't want to keep putting it off any longer. So this episode is for you if you've ever felt like a completely different person to who you were 2 or 3 years ago. You feel like the evolution is there and you can't quite pinpoint what has gone on. It's like your desires have shifted, it's like your energy has changed, and the way you used to show up is different. It no longer feels in alignment with who you are. And I want to debunk why that's happening, and I want to share with you that there is nothing wrong with you, and it's just part of the evolution of life and actually of your natal chart. So just know you haven't lost yourself. It is that your progressed moon has moved. And so, welcome to Invoking Mystica. Here I'm going to give you astrology that actually expands your life. Not just your sun sign, but the deeper, most profound layers that people actually don't reach. And today we're covering one of the most powerful placements in your birth chart, and that's the progressed moon. I'm going to share what it is, how it works, and how you can find yours, and exactly what it means when it's going through every single house. I'm going to share all 12 houses and what it means when the progressed moon is there. So this will be your complete reference guide. So make sure that you save this and you can keep coming back to it over and over again as your progressed moon progresses. So just to cover a little basics, your natal chart is a snapshot of the sky when you were born. And that natal chart doesn't change. But what happens over time is our chart has an evolution called progressed. And so it adds on a second layer, a third layer into your life. So we have the progressed moon, which moves every 2.5 years. We also have our inner planets that move every 30 years, but I can save that one for another video. It just adds another layer onto who you are. And so in secondary progressions, each day after your birth represents 1 year of your life. So the sky on the day after 10, it mirrors the themes of your life on your 10th year. Day 30 mirrors your 30s, or what we like to just remind you of, your Saturn return. And it reveals what's going on in your inner world is really, really profound. So grab your notebook, grab whatever you need, settle in. If you're going for a walk, great. I'm sitting here with a cup of cacao, so I'm going to stop and take little sips every now and then and pause. I am a rather slow and intentional person. I try to be at most. So jump in for the ride, and I'm really, really excited. So the progressed moon moves through your chart at roughly 1 degree per month, meaning it changes zodiac sign approximately every 2.5 years, and it moves through an entire house over that same period of time. It completes a full cycle of 12 houses roughly every 27 to 29 years, which is also around your Saturn return. And this is not a coincidence. Think of your natal moon as your emotional nature. It is who you are at your core. Your progressed moon is your emotional weather. What you need, what you crave, and who you're being called to experience in different seasons of life. And this is just a gentle reminder that you are not scattered, although you can feel like you're scattered. You are not broken. You are simply seasonal. And that is the joy of being a highly sensitive creative, right? And so finding your moon, your progressed moon, is completely free. If you go to astro.com and create an account if you haven't already, enter your birth details and then click on the extended chart selection. Under chart type, choose your progressed chart or secondary progressions. Now, I work with Hellenistic astrology more than I do modern at the moment. So I started with modern and now I've gone back to working with the traditional and ancient astrology. And so I'm learning and unlearning things as I go. But it is a really, really interesting topic, which is be for another video. But load it when you load your chart, you find the moon symbol, which is the crescent, and the number beside it tells you which house it's currently moving through. And that house is representing part of your season. And this is what we're going to decode in this episode. And as I go through, I encourage you to listen to all of them, because understanding the full cycle helps you see where you've been, where you're going, and where others are going as well. I find it so interesting to understand where my friends are, what they're experiencing, where my partner is, where my kids are. And so this has really helped me on a relational level as well. So it helps in all areas of life, not just our business and our creativity. So let's dive in. So the first house, this is the house of self, right? This is the house of the body. And this is known as your ascendant, your rising sign. So this is what other people really notice you as. And if your progressed moon is in the first house, and this is going to be a rebirth time for you. After completing a full cycle through your chart, it returns here to begin again. It's like the full card in tarot. You're starting again. And this is a season of radical self-focus. And it's not selfish. Some people might view it as selfish, that you've gone really internal and focusing on yourself, but it is not a selfish placement to have. You are being called to reconnect with your body, your identity, what you stand for, your desires. What do you actually want? This is the part where you get to actually just answer that question. What is it that I actually want? Who am I becoming on this journey? Who am I becoming on this journey? And this is a time to start new chapters. You might reinvent your image. You might find yourself starting to dress like your progressed moon sign. And this is an invitation for you to step more fully into yourself and to nurture yourself, to nourish the body, to tend to emotions that are under the surface, that you've been putting off, that you've been ignoring. And for the creative woman in business, this is often a season of a new brand, a new offer, a completely different direction is born. Trust the impulse to reinvent yourself and to begin again. And in the second house, and this is going to be the house of worth. The progressed moon in your second house turns your emotional attention towards money, resources, and self-worth. This is not a shallow transit like people will often say, money desires is shallow. It's an invitation for you to examine the story you carry about what you deserve. You may find yourself thinking deeply about your home. We're looking at the themes of what it is that you want to carry in life. What do you want to own? What do you want to earn? What are you tired of dulling down? This is a very desirable placement to work with. It is traditionally ruled by Venus. And so when we're looking at the second house, are you actually owning your desires? And we can tune into that emotional frequency of those desires. And I know this might sound corny to some, but honestly, there's a point in life where are we going to keep struggling to create what we want to create or have what we want to have? Or we are going to work with this level of self-worth in ways that support your emotional well-being. For those of you that are in business, this is one of the most powerful seasons to rewrite your money story, your self-worth. Perhaps raise your prices because you're going to be emotionally connected. And as women, we are emotionally connected to nearly everything, right? And so understanding that you get to build a more stable foundation. So this is typically a Taurus house as well. So Taurus energy, they love stability. Are you building a stable foundation for your income to come through your business? Or is it sort of so up and down that you can't actually get out of survival mode and you're constantly ruminating in survival? So this is where you get to work around some shadow sides that you've got going on around self-worth, around your pricing, around your gifts, around, being seen and actually desiring that stability. And there's going to be certain things that are going to require your energy to be able to be stable. Right, so let that sink in. Start working with what you actually desire in life. It is such a powerful placement. And now we're going to move into the third house. So this is your communication house, ruled by Mercury. And during this time, your communication really becomes a foundational part of your life. You are really deeply connected and emotionally connected to your words. And this is where you might feel the need to read, to speak, to write, to share, to connect. Ideas might flow more easily and your mind might feel more alive. And it's a really, really exciting placement to have when you lead with curiosity. And this is a really ideal season to perhaps start a blog, to start a podcast, to start a YouTube channel, to allow your voice, whether it is your actual voice or whether it is your written voice, to be seen and to be heard more. It doesn't have to necessarily mean on any sort of internet platform. It can be simply in your local area around, events and expos. How can you be seen more for your talents and your ideas and the wisdom that you have no doubt been refining for the last probably 2 to 3 decades. And so this is a really good placement to connect. And allow yourself to notice if you've been holding back from sharing your knowledge. This is going to really, really give you powerful words powerful curiosity. You might like to actually dive more into some learning, so more reading on different avenues, different ways of life. You know, the gifts that you have, like if you're a tarot reader, for example, you might feel like diving deep into, you know, understanding a bit more of the ancient wisdom, or reading about someone else's journey and understanding their journey. So it is a really powerful placement for any communication style of reading, writing, learning, speaking. And it is also about our local area, our neighborhood. So this is might be where you might feel more connected to create some more things in your local area, and people can find you and they can connect with you. Right, now we're going into the fourth house, the house of roots. This is traditionally ruled by the moon. And so the progressed moon in the fourth house is one of the most inward transits in the entire cycle. And so you are being drawn to the home, whether that is your physical home or your internal home, and tending to your emotional needs. You might be in a phase of not wanting to be seen, not wanting to really create anything that is not supportive of your home life. And again, this is also internal and external. This can also be childhood stuff. You might like to work on some childhood things that have gone on, and you might want to start, clearing out that energy, doing some shadow work, around that time in your life. And so you might want to nest a little bit more. You might not want to be as visible. You might want to rest and tend to your private life. This is a season. It doesn't mean that you're not still creating out in the world. It just means a more slower pace where you might want to cut back on what you're actually doing. And this is what I mean by, if you've got the progressed moon going through your second house, is to build the foundation. So when these type of cycles come up, you actually have set up yourself where you can rest, and you're not in survival mode, like trying to bring, more finances in your home. And this is also a time where you might like to, quietly build stronger roots in your work. You're creating a lot more behind the scenes. So remember, this is a 2.5-year cycle. And so use that information for what you will. And know that as you're building your roots and you're resting a little more, and of course it's, Cancer, and when we're in Cancer season, it is, we're going into winter here in the Southern Hemisphere. And so things tend to go a little more quiet. Although for some of us, we prefer to be out and about in these cooler months, because this is the weather we like. We prefer. And so just know, by whatever you're creating, that in this time, create it with the strong roots and connect to your work in an emotional way. All right, let's dive into the fifth house. And this is the house of creation. And so when your progressed moon enters your fifth house, life becomes perhaps a little more playful, a little more vibrant. This is the house of children, of creativity, of relation, of, the sexual kind. And it is a more vibrant, more alive. So this house, you might really start to feel more expressed. You might want to express yourself more, however that is for you. And when you look at it, you've just come out of quiet fourth house. And now you've rested, you're nurtured, you've perhaps used that energy wisely, and you've built foundation, you've built, a good root system. And you can finally exhale because it feels like now I'm supported as a woman to actually be in my joy, my creativity, in my, in fire energy. Like, it is the house of Leo. And so allow yourself to be more expressive, more courageous as you show up for different things in your life, whether that is in motherhood or your business or in creativity. Allow yourself to be a little more bold because you've spent the time tending to what you needed to tend to at the home, your inner home, in the previous season. Do you see how this sort of roll over and affects it? It all blends in with each other. And so with the moon here, your emotional world is really going to be tied to how much joy and creativity that you're allowing yourself, and the freedom. This is not a season for just discipline or strategy. It is really allowing you to create for the joy of creating, if that makes sense. For business owners in particular, this often brings more of a creative surge. And you often might be bored, and like you might be wanting to create a more playful offer. And allow yourself to follow what actually lights you up, because that is your compass right now. And so we're going into the 6th house. This house is of ritual, daily ritual, routine. This is also known as the house of service. And so when your progressed moon is going in here, you're probably going to feel like you're more focused on your rituals and your daily habits and your health and getting your systems to hold your life together. You can see how this sort of blends in, right? So we've gone from the 4th, which is about roots, then we go into play, and then, okay, we've played a lot. Now it's time to tend again to our inner world, our self, our rituals, our routine, our health, our mind, our body. And this is how that your habits and your health are going to be really important to you. And in business, you might be feeling called to sort of streamline your processes a little bit, improve your client experience, or to invest in your physical well-being. And this is allowing your body to speak to you right now. And this is when you can choose to listen, and how you structure your days will really determine the quality that you're creating with. Does that make sense? So this one is all about systems, of the boring systems that some of us find boring. And, a lot of us like to be more in flow, and that's perfectly okay. It's how can we create flow within a bit more of a structure that's like, okay, from 7 to 8, I know this is my exercise hour. If you don't like the same monotonous thing for your exercise, choose something different. Instead of doing weights, go for a walk. Instead of going for a walk, do Pilates. Allow the variety in that daily structure. Like, it doesn't have to be boring, if that makes sense. So how can the structure feel exciting, feel different, and to serve a purpose if you are that way inclined, where you do prefer that more of a creative energy flow in your daily routines and your habits. So we're going to go in the 7th house of relationships. And when the progressed moon moves through your 7th house, your emotional world becomes deeply orientated about other people. about partnership, about collaboration, about one-to-one connections, about relationships to maybe your own partner. And this is a really powerful time where you want that connection with the other person. You really want to be seen in that relationship. And this is a powerful season for finding, the right people to collaborate with, the right people to work with, the right clients that you want to work with. We get to work with clients that really inspire us, that lift us up, that get our creative energy flowing. And so this is where the direction of who you work with might change. You might notice that you want to start working with a completely different type of person, and there can be a tendency, a shadow tendency in this of losing yourself in another person. So this is really important. So you remember the 7th house is opposing the 1st house. The 1st house is of self and the 7th house is of others. So understanding that you can get lost in another person and be deeply connected emotionally with them, that you forget who you are and what you're about. And that's okay. That's the season of life. And so being able to go through that and understand that, hey, I've lost myself in this right now and I need to pull back a little bit. I'm giving you exactly what you want and I've forgotten what I need and what makes me feel alive, because I've been just following what you want to keep this relationship happy and to keep it going. And this relationship doesn't mean necessarily romantic. It can mean platonic, a business partner, someone you collaborate with. It's like, I'm following exactly how you want things structured, but it's just not feeling good for me anymore. So it's the 7th house is ruled by Libra, so it's like the scales, the balance. How can we balance both worlds? Which is really gonna the light is going to the light is going to shine on that part of your life. And so remember to keep returning to your truth in this transit as well. So we're going to go into the 8th house. The progressed moon in the 8th house is one of the most transformative seasons that you can have in this entire cycle, because this is the house of death, rebirth, of shared resources, of intimacy, and of the hidden. So during this cycle, you may feel like you are being pulled beneath the surface. You don't want to be seen, and it's typically because you are going into the hidden, you are going into the dark. And this is where old patterns, old wounds, old identities, and they are being shown to you. It's not a comfortable transit, but it is a necessary one. We can get scared of transits like this, and really not want it to happen. But the more you allow yourself to go into the unseen, if you're not comfortable in the unseen, some of us are comfortable being, under the surface and looking at the nitty gritty. Like that's where some of us shine and some of us don't. So if you're a person that doesn't like to be in these darker places, like these darker houses, this is it's a time that you need to shed things. You need to let things go. It's a pivot. It can be an ending. It can be a complete reimagining of what you thought you were doing, what you were building, and it can be really confronting. It reminds me sort of like the Tower in tarot. I don't know if that's a reference point. It probably isn't, because the 8th house is ruled by Scorpio. But it reminds me of the Tower and, the Death card all in one. And it can be a scary transit that you've got coming up, but If you know you've got you and you've tended to your roots, you know that these moments in life are required, they are needed to make room for something far more powerful than you could ever imagine. And when we haven't been doing the work, and when we have been giving our power away, and when we don't have standards or boundaries with others, this transit can feel probably a little bit more harder because you haven't built up that I don't know how I want to say it, but like the nervous energy, like the nervous system energy to hold the capacity to hold people's dissatisfaction with you, because you haven't been holding your standards and you haven't been holding your boundaries. You've been letting people walk all over you. And so this transit can really, really shine a light on that. Pay attention to your dreams in this, because they're going to have profound messages for you. Grab a new journal that you can just have as a dream journal beside your bed. I really invite you to trust the disillusion in this, because you will become more yourself by the end of this transit. Like, this excites me so much. I don't know why, because I don't personally enjoy it, but I do love it. But I love it, but I don't. It's an interesting transit to go through, and just know you've got you, and know that things that fall away that you once thought you wanted are for your highest good. So let's go into the ninth house. And this is the house of expansion. So Sagittarius rules this house, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So when your progressed moon enters your ninth house, your soul really wants space. It wants more philosophy. It maybe want to travel, whether that is to physically travel or to astro travel, into different realms, into higher learning, into the search of meaning, and work on that nourishment for your emotional body, your emotional system. And this is where you might start feeling restless, hungry for new perspectives, a new way of learning, a deeper way of learning. You might find new teachers that you enjoy. This is a season of expansion, of growing your worldview and your reach for your business. The ninth house progressed moon often happens with a desire to teach at a higher level as well. So you want to reach to a wider audience. Maybe you want to write a book, maybe a podcast. It is connected to the third house. So it's that communication. What wants to come through is what wants to come through. You might step into a little bit more visibility. And so the question for this house is, what do you believe, and are you willing to share it so boldly? And again, if you've done the nervous system work in the 8th house, you're going to feel more comfortable to share that information more boldly, because you've grown the capacity to hold other people's disagreements about your opinions. And that's generally why a lot of people don't share their opinions, because they don't want the confrontation about it. So if any of this is resonating, please put it in the comments, because I really, really want to hear it. Now we're going to go into the progressed moon in the 10th house. And this is all about your legacy, your public life, your public image, if I can get my words out right, your career and your legacy, what you want to be known for. What are you building that will outlast you? This is the one one of the most outward transits that we can expect. And it is a outward facing season of your chart. So visibility, reputation, and achieving something might be highlighted in this area. For many women, this is when work finally becomes more public in a meaningful way, when a platform grows, when recognition arrives. And if you've been doing the work throughout the transits, which I'm going to be totally honest with you, is these transits, especially the moon, you sort of don't have a choice but to go with it and to do the work. And if you're fighting against doing the work, especially on these inner transits, like the 4th and the 8th and the 12th, if you're fighting against it and you're not actually sitting and doing the work, by doing the work I mean the internal work, the emotional work, then it might not roll over seamlessly your nervous system needs a capacity to hold the reputation. It needs to hold the public recognition that wants to come your way through this transit. And this is also an invitation to know that we just be authentic to who we are instead of performing. The recognition will come that will feel more in alignment and not seeking that external validation, which can feel, a little hard at times. We've got to remember that the 10th house is actually, it's ruled by Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. And so this is the timekeeper. This is the mastery. Have you mastered what you're here to master? And you know what that is. And I'm going to cover a lot more on this channel. But having the mastery is going to help that public recognition. Does that make sense? Like, you can actually create a whole level of that recognition that you want. But when we go back down to the 2nd house, have you actually owned your desires and what you want, and have you been doing the work around? Does that make sense? Like, it blows my mind. Astrology literally blows my mind. So do the work, make sure you're tapped in and you've been doing the work around what you actually desire in order for that public recognition to work with this cycle. Astrology is more than knowledge. If we embody what's going on, it lives in the body. That's where it's going to make the most amount of difference to your business, to your life. Okay, let's go into the progressed moon into the 11th house. This is the house of community, of networking, of friendships, and of gains as well. So not a lot of people talk about it as a money house, but it can be a part of your money story. Anyway, that's a whole nother episode. But when the progressed moon here, your emotional nourishment comes from lack of belonging, a finding of your people, your community, your tribe, friendships and networks and collective. It might be really important to you in this time, and nothing else sort of matters. So this is an ideal time to grow your audience, build a community, launch a membership if you want, collaborate with others, however it is that you want to build your business, because let's face it can be built in multiple different ways. How do you want it to be built? Find your network. however you want to find your network. And it's so interesting when you take notice, right? So this is sort of where the individual hustle sort of softens. So you've gone through that public recognition, the visibility of your 10th house. And now it's coming in and it's, you're creating for a community. Does that make sense? Like, it follows the cycle. So this is where you get to find your people and you get to find whoever it is you want to find. Let's move on to the 12th. So this is the House of Surrender. This is the current transit that I have been transiting the last 2 years. I'm nearing the end of it. And it has been a journey of fighting myself. And this is what I mean. When we're going through the hidden houses, we can fight. It's like we're fighting out of a wet paper bag. And so when we have this awareness, we can understand the season that we're in. And so it's not meaning that when you go into a hidden house that you're not going to create. You're still going to want to create. It's wanting to create, but also really wanting to retreat. And I'm naturally this way inclined. So the 12th house transit it's been elevated a little more than it typically has. But I'm generally a hermit anyway. So I'm okay with being hidden. I'm okay with, wanting to be seen and also wanting to hide at the exact same time. It is annoying, but it is who I am naturally. So this 12th house transit, it depending on your personality, it might hit a little differently. And so this is the final season before the cycle starts again. And this is a really mysterious placement. It is the house of solitude, of the subconscious, and of what is hidden and is sacred. So you may feel withdrawn, more dreamy, hard to pin down yourself. And this is a really intentional time. The 12th house asks you to release, to rest, to let go of what's truly ending. Creativity here is really, really deeply spiritual. Art, music, writing. At the beginning of this transit, this is when I started creating like my own book and ebooks and journals, and you should literally see my files. They're full of it. Ones that have never really truly come to life. And I think it was just for me to be creative. It was just for me to write. I don't know if they will be seen in a public way. Time will tell on that one, but this is a season that is not a lot of outward action. It is more of a deep inner preparation. What you dream and envision in the 12th house becomes the seed of everything that blooms when the moon crosses over your ascendant. So it's like you've put the seeds in the soil, you've planted it. It's like germinating. And when it goes in the first house, depending on what other aspects are going on, please keep in mind, this is when the cycle begins again. This is a time for you to rest without guilt. Easier said than done when you are a woman, a wife, or a mother. And you're really, really working on past versions of yourself. It's like you're churning. And this is a really important time to pay close attention to your psychic abilities, your intuition. Please don't ignore the symbolism that is going on. Please don't ignore the same repetitive patterns that is going on or the visions that you are having, because this is a time to let them be what they need to be, and just to pay close attention. This is a really, really great time to write, to journal, to be in a really contemplative phase of your life. So as you can see, the progressed moon is one of my favorite tools of astrology. It gives you the context of the season of life that nothing else quite hits, because we are emotional beings, and this is your reminder that you are not meant to be the same person all of the time. You are meant to grow, to shed, to expand, to root, to rise. Every 2.5 years is a new chapter. Every 27 years is a new cycle. You are never lost. You are always exactly where the moon needs you to be. So I invite you to drop your progressed moon house in the comments, because I want to read every single one and I want to see how it's been for you. Share with us how you've been. And if this video gave you something, please share it with a woman who needs to hear it. And if you feel called, please subscribe to Invoking Mystica for more astrology that goes beneath the surface, because astrology is so unique, it is so nuanced, and it goes deeper than the little pop astrology things that we're getting all over social media. And I want this to be a place of the deeper meaning, where we can go into the deeper aspects of astrology. So I will see you on the next one.